Once upon a time, there was a me that didn't care about this sort of thing. But today, I do. And we're going to tackle a fascinating question. And it got me thinking the other day. And this question is, when I saw some behaviours that were ugly. And is what happens when two narcissistic people get together and they get into a relationship. So I've done some research, looked at a few things, looked at a few typical sort of behaviours, come to some conclusions, and this is what I'm going to share with you now. I mean, a lot of people, what I initially thought that it'd be a relief because these two narcissistic people together, that means that they're too busy feeding off each other to manipulate and drain those around them. But it doesn't really work that way. Let me tell you how. Why? Because another question that led me to is, do narcissists seek each other out? Or are they more interested in preying on the empathetic individuals? Because if they seek in me out, that's what I say, they sort why would they go to each other? But the truth is, they do find each other quite often. In fact, I think about it, narcissists, especially the grandiose ones, thrive on attention, validation, and status. They crave admiration and want to be seen as the ultimate power couple, living the kind of life that looks perfect on social media. In early stages of the relationship, during the love bombing phase, they're likely to have an electrifying connection, big gestures, extravagant displays, and a shared obsession with being seen as superior. These things fuel their initial attraction. They love the attention, the drama, the spectacle. But as always with narcissists, that high can't last forever. Eventually the admiration fades, the boredom creeps in. That's when things get really interesting. Inevitably, contempt sets in. Each narcissist wants to be the dominant one, the one in control, the one admired the most. When their egos clash, it's like putting two wild animals in a cage. Neither wants to back down, and neither can tolerate the idea of being outshined. The same grandiosity that brought these two together now turns into a battlefield where they try and tear each other apart. And that's the thing. Narcissistic relationships aren't built on love, trust, or mutual growth. They're built on power struggles and validation. Without a steady supply of admiration, resentment brews, and the cycle of manipulation, gaslighting, and discard begins. So does it work when two narcissists get together? Only for a while. But eventually, the facade crumbles, and what's left is a war of egos. Invariably, one person is going to get bored and more quickly than the other, or one is going to need more validation, more narcissistic supply than the other can provide. And then something is bound to go wrong. One of them will experience a setback, while the other sees a sudden rise in status. And that's when everything begins to unravel. Take, for an example, two people are chasing success in the same field. Let's say they're both performers, both craving the spotlight. They're attending auditions, networking, posting their created lives online. But the moment one of them lands a major role, while the other is still struggling, forget about it. It's World War III. The jealousy, the resentment, the competition, it all explodes. The relationship won't just deteriorate, it will implode. It will end badly. And this is where we go back to the fundamentals of why narcissists struggle to maintain relationships. They don't view their partners as the same as people with independent needs, or emotions and ambitions. They view them as a means to an end, a source of narcissistic supply, a tool for self-regulation. They invalidate others but demand constant validation for themselves. But here's where things get particularly volatile. Narcissists are hypersensitive. They're careless with their words, throwing out cutting remarks without thinking twice. Yet at the same time, they expect others to tiptoe around their fragile egos. So together, neither is willing to censor themselves, and both are quick to take offense. Why did you say it like that? Why did you look at me that way? Why didn't you remember this? It's every argument everyone has ever had in a narcissistic relationship, but magnified, intensified like 10 times, 100 times more. It's like a mirror reflecting back and forth endlessly, a cycle of blame, defensiveness, and escalation. It's like it's Seventh circle of hell. And then comes the suspicion. Narcissists are more likely to be unfaithful, constantly seeking new sources of admiration. Because they themselves are wired this way, they assume their partner is doing the same. Accusations of cheating, jealousy, over social media activity, obsessive monitoring. It all starts early and only gets worse. Why did you like that person's picture? Why did you have to post that selfie? Who were you texting? Back and forth, a constant battle of control. But where things get really sort of smelly is when the relationship finally starts to unravel. Oddly, narcissists tend to struggle more with breakups when they've been with another narcissist. You'd think they'd move on quickly, eager to find a new supply, but instead, many find themselves spiraling. Why? Because this wasn't just a relationship. It was a high-stakes power struggle. And when a narcissistic relationship ends, it's not just about losing a partner, it's about losing control, losing status, losing the competition, the very dynamic that fueled their connection. This constant battle for dominance also makes the fallout much more devastating. At the core, two narcissists together are like two junkyard dogs, always sniffing around, always ready for the fight. When things are good, they're having the time of their lives, reveling in the shared delusions of grandeur. But when things go bad, they go bad fast. They go bad fast, and it's like you don't want to know about it. They turn on each other. It's like everything ends, and it doesn't just end with a fizzle. It ends with it crashes and it burns, leaving wreckage in its wake. For those from the outside, it may seem like poetic justice. Two manipulators locked in battle, unable to escape their own toxic patterns. But for those caught in the storm, it's chaos. And it's a stark reminder that true relationships aren't about power or image. They're about mutual respect, trust, and emotional depth. And that's something narcissists just can't sustain. What's so interesting is how shocked a narcissist is when they're in a relationship with another narcissist. They're completely blindsided by their partner's entitlement, the lack of empathy, grandiosity, and constant need for validation, the very same traits they themselves have. It's fascinating to walk someone through this. They'll say, my partner is so entitled. And at first, they love hearing that validation because during a breakup, everyone wants to hear how awful the other person is. But then comes the real test. When you explain that there's no point in defending, explaining, or personalizing the situation, what do? They do exactly that. They go right back into the argument, trying to prove their point, trying to get through to the other person, engaging in the same cycle over and over and over again. And that's the core issue. It doesn't work when both people are entitled. When two people both have to be the first in line, when both people believe they deserve to be the best and most attention on them, conflict is inevitable. What might have been intoxicating at first, two powerful magnetic personalities drawn to each other, eventually turns into a bitter war. The arguments get more and more contemptuous, more explosive, more impulsive, and much more difficult to resolve. One of the things that often keeps two narcissists in a relationship is sex. Narcissistic relationships can be intense in that department because, for the many reasons, mainly sex is a performance art and it's a game of showmanship. Who can impress more? Who can win in the bedroom? Many narcissists take great care of their physical appearance, and even those who don't still approach intimacy with the same mindset, I have to be, despite the volatile arguments, the relationship keeps pulling them back into this cycle, this intense fights followed by passionate reconciliation. It's all part of the performance. Still, even with that dynamic, the complaints persist. Why don't they get listened to me? Why don't they get it? Why does everything have to be their way? No matter how clearly someone explains that their partner is just as entitled as they are, narcissists in relationships just don't get it. They can't process that someone else is playing the same game as they are. They don't understand why the other person won't bend to their will. And the simple reason is they're both playing the same role. This is why narcissists can't trust. They can't see their own faults. They're completely blind to their own behaviours that they exhibit themselves. If you ever find yourself trying to talk to a narcissist through a relationship with another narcissist, be prepared for the frustration. They will keep looping, refusing to believe that the very thing frustrating them is the same thing that they've done to countless others. And yet, even though narcissists are quick to call out other narcissists, they cannot understand why they can't fix the other narcissist. Narcissism fuels grandiosity, and that grandiosity convinces them that they are different, that they have superpowers, that with what enough charm, money, or pressure, they can't get their partner to comply. But when their partner is another narcissist, that's a power dynamic. The dynamic collapses. It's two immovable objects, two titans locked in a struggle. Neither can win. If you've ever watched two narcissists go through a divorce, you know how brutal it gets. These are the divorces that drag on for years, where both sides spend more on legal fees than the actual settlement. Why? Because it's not about the money, it's about winning. The real battle isn't over assets or custody. It's about who walks away with the upper hand. At the end of any narcissistic relationship, the only true win is getting out. But when two narcissists get together, they just can't let go. Maybe it's because for the first time, the mirror is reflecting something they simply don't want to see. So if you're ever caught in the sidelines watching two narcissists go head to head, step back. Don't get involved. Let them fight their fight. And if you're feeling particularly detached, maybe even grab some popcorn and watch the fireworks. If you're still here now, you've done well. Thanks for tuning in. And if you haven't already, subscribe, stay connected for any up and coming deep dive on relationships and healing and navigating toxic dynamics. Until the next time, peace and love. Stay aware, stay strong. And thanks for watching. Peace and love.